right? And I can already tell by the chat, just more people were into Jake Paul, Mike Perry. You can't take anything away from those guys, especially Jake Paul, what he's done. We're an MMA show, man, but we're giving respect. And this is a former MMA guy in the main event. There was another one as well on the undercard. So let's talk about it, right? Time to focus on some boxing. Two big names. We're set the tango down in Tampa, and we also got to see Uriah Hall get in on some of the action on the undercard and maybe get in on some of that, man. Boxing pays, guys. In the main event, though, Jake Paul was too much for Mike Perry. He got the TKO stoppage, and his risky play came through. Now he's all set for Mike Tyson in November. What was the reaction to this fight? What were you thinking, goes, as all this was playing out? It was kind of like what Chris Curtis told us the other day, what his fight would be like against Paulo Costa, right? It was a slobber knocker, but man, it was kind of fun.
Yeah, I was in a way I was hating myself a little bit for liking it a little too much. You know, this is now another week of these boxing events that have kind of won over the weekend, right? With Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. But look, I mean, Jake Paul's no dummy, right? He does an excellent job of picking his opponents. And what he does is he picks opponents who present just enough danger to kind of keep the fans into it, make it seem compelling. But at the end of the day, when you look at this fight, who was Mike Perry? Mike Perry was a guy that was selected because he was a smaller guy. You know, he makes a living fighting with smaller gloves and lately no gloves, right? There's a huge difference when you take that game and put it into boxing with big gloves. Now you have to be more accurate, right? You got to go to the body so that you can have the openings to go up to the head. That's just not Mike Perry. He doesn't have excellent footwork. He's not going to go to your body. So basically, you just have to keep your hands up and you're going to be fine because this is an older Mike Perry with a lot of mileage on his body. He's not that quick. So if you're Jake Paul, you're thinking all I got to do is run around that ring, throw a jab out, set up that right hand, and it should be good to go. It's a recipe that Jake Paul does over and over and over again, and he's setting it up with the next guy, right? If you look at Mike Tyson, well, I'm sure we're going to get into that, but Mike Perry's an easy guy to market. He's a king of violence, right? Like how do you look at him, his look, the things he's done, and not want to watch that guy fight? I think it's a brilliant idea of Jake Paul to put together these types of fights, but I think we knew early on it probably wasn't going to be Mike Perry's night. I think around the second round he kind of came around a little bit, landed a couple good shots, but Jake just circled out of trouble and stayed out of trouble for the most part.
I saw Jake kind of possibly hitting a wall, and Mike Perry did land a couple decent punches. I think it was round three that he maybe snagged that one, but then Jake Paul just kind of came back. I just couldn't believe Mike Perry's poor defense really, really cost him. Matt, what did you think of this fight as it was unfolding? First of all, let's start with, were you entertained? Were you having fun at this low level boxing, event? Versus, I guess, what our palate is more used to, mixed martial arts that had just finished a couple hours earlier.
Yeah, like last time when I was on the show and we were talking about, the Diaz fight, the Diaz Masvidal fight, and people jumped on me in the comments for saying, they sold out a decent size arena. People got caught up on the word decent for some reason. 20,000 capacity. That's like what this arena was as well. It's a fun atmosphere, and the fight itself came off as fun as well. Like I said, like last time, man, like these fights aren't to be taken too seriously. Like it's obviously purely entertainment. Jake Paul is who he is. If you're expecting him to be a high level championship boxer at this point, then he's sold you a great bill of goods. Same with Mike Perry. Mike Perry is just an entertaining fighter. He's the BKFC king of violence. He goes out there, throws caution to the wind as well, and he just swings for it. That's why it works in bare knuckle, because if he cracks you a couple of times with those bare bones, it's going to hurt a lot more, and you're going to go down. And that's why he wins those fights there. With the gloved hands, it's completely different. It comes down to technique. It comes down to the ability to slip and rip on the counters, and that's what Jake was doing. Yeah, Mike had a couple of good moments there, but like I said before the fight, it's all going to come down to who's the better boxer. We're going to see technique win the day, and that's what happened with Jake Paul here. And you got to give credit to Mike Perry, though, man. That iron chin kind of saved him there a couple of times. He gave us a couple of good moments, and it wasn't a complete wash. But, yeah, I think we all knew at the end of the day what was going to happen here. It was just a matter of when. And turned out to be, what, sixth round? Round six?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Oh man, it's cheap. It's cheap fun, I guess, but I do feel a little dirty. I almost feel like I have to shower, man, after some of these events. Um, Amanda Serrano's opponent, what is she doing in there? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that
Like
was the
she didn't
worst.
really offer much either.
Oh
And I know
god.
you're setting up a big fight versus Katie Taylor later in the year, but still, man, she's got like 50 fights. She's a former champ. Her opponent was just not on par. I also thought, and
Mm-mm.
I agree with a comment here in the Chris Goes Wild says, I thought Uriah Hall could have possibly won if he was more active.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if it's age or what it is, but I always feel like some of these fighters, this is what you wanted. You don't want the wrestling, you don't want the jits, you don't want to get judo tossed. You just got to throw hands. But Mike Perry, like his strategy was just god awful, and he's not a bad striker over in BKFC. And Uriah Hall, I thought that fight was winnable as well. What do you
Hmm.
think, Matt, of Uriah Hall's performance? By the way,
It was solid. You know,
winnable, right?
he's hittable because he's so upright. He seems very stiff in the ring,
No,
but
but I
he
was
can
saying
still.
his fight was winnable, didn't you think? Against
Yeah. It was it was a winnable fight for him,
yeah.
especially considering the shape that Chavez Jr. came in at. He doesn't fight at
Hmm.
that weight. He just seemed like he was like, oh, somebody needs me on a card. Okay, Uriah Hall, the former. Okay, I'll take it. That's what it seemed like to me. And Uriah Hall, it was definitely a winnable fight for him. And I mean, he didn't look bad or anything, but he does seem. You can tell that he's not a pure boxer. That's for sure.
Hmm. All right, so this obviously takes us to Mike Perry goes back to BKFC, and we'll get to that in just a sec. And then we got Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson in November. What do you think, Fada? Is this going to be a bigger event than we all think? It's at Cowboy Stadium. It's on Netflix. Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson, one of the most historical figures in boxing. Are you into this event? And who do you think? Who's your early lean? I guess we'll start there. I'm going to get everyone's early lean.
So, I mean, is it going to be big? Or a lot of people going to watch? Absolutely. I mean, it being on Netflix is huge. I always measure how big a fight is when people that aren't MMA fans, aren't boxing fans, are talking about it. And I usually measure that from people that I play basketball with, and they were talking about it. And it's on Netflix. It's everybody's got Netflix, right? Everyone's subscribed to Netflix. So, it's the fact that a lot of people can watch this fight is going to make it huge inevitably. Do I want to see it? I don't really want to see it, to be honest. I like Darren Till's call out, honestly. I think Darren Till would be a good next fight. We saw Till recently return to action. Weird fight. Um, not the opponent I expected him to come back to, but I did like seeing him back in action because you don't want to go straight into a fight when you haven't been active. So I like that we saw him return to action. Um, a tune-up if you want to call it that. But yeah, I like Darren Till's call out of Jake Paul, someone who's got size, someone who's very confident. I question a lot of people's motivation. They're so excited about the big bag. Mike Perry seemed to, and even the reaction after the loss. It's kind of like a grateful. A bunch of people were saying in the comment section like, uh, Mike Perry's being nice, what's happening and whatnot. It almost seems like they're grateful for the big bag. Nate Diaz as well looked a lot better against Masvidal than he did against Jake Paul. His coach Cesar Gracie, I think in his interview with Submission Radio, also alluded to that. It's like, why aren't they going in there and taking it seriously? Are people? How long are you going to continuously underestimate Jake Paul? And it just makes everybody so mad. Like, look at Michael Bisping. He's so mad. Conor McGregor, I know we're going to talk about that reaction in a bit. He's so mad. They're so mad that these guys that are representing MMA aren't doing well against Jake Paul. And I agree with what Bisping is saying in the opposition, that he's been tactical, picking certain guys who are smaller, over the hill, whatnot. Jake Paul's being smart. He's doing good business. He's making money, and he's racking up wins and finishes. But it just seems like everybody's so mad to see that the MMA guys are not representing the way they want them to. But the question is, are these MMA guys just so happy with a big bag? Like, why aren't they motivated to train and take this fight seriously? So, the Mike Tyson fight, obviously Mike Tyson's Mike Tyson, but he's 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and I don't know if I want to see that fight. Will I watch it? It's on Netflix. Like I said, everyone's going to watch it, right? But I think Darren Till would have been a next good opponent for him. But I just think the continuous theme here is everybody's just so mad because these MMA guys are not representing the way they want them to. So, yeah, to the early lean, I'm going to go Jake Paul. I think he gets him out of there early.
For the record, I'm mad too, man. We keep getting punked, but I'm entertained at least lately. But man, I'm mad because this has just been going on and on and on. And I was even mad when Tim Sylvia got knocked out in MMA by a boxer, Ray Mercer, years ago. We couldn't even get that one right. So we need to win more of these. That's for sure. Goes, you know the drill. Early lean. Tyson versus Jake Paul. Are you into it right now? We know we'll all be into it in November, but are you kind of into it right now? Like just the preview of that upcoming fight.
No, not at all, guys. I'm not really into it, but I'm not lying either. I'm not fronting. The day of, I'm gonna have popcorn in my mouth and be stuffing my mouth with popcorn, and I'm probably gonna be into it then. But listen, come on, let's really break this down. Mike Tyson can give you maybe one, two good rounds, right? The dude's 58 years old. His body's not built for this anymore, you guys. Like 20 years ago, we were saying, I don't think he has it anymore. He needs to go away. He could possibly get hurt. 20 years later, you're going to tell me, what is he, faster? Is his timing better? Like, how does this make any sense whatsoever to put this fight together? I
Well,
don't know
20
how
years
they're
ago,
going to
though,
do
he
it.
was fighting actual heavyweights, though.
I know, but
Heavyweight
dude,
boxers. It
this
was fair
this
to
is
say that.
but 20 years, you know what that does to your body, George? You don't feel different 20 years ago. Now you're going to compete against a kid, a guy who, like, say what you will about Jake Paul, he takes the sport seriously. This is the first fight, I think,
Doesn't
where you
mean
could
he's not a
say,
tomato can, though, in actual real versus actual real boxers.
but he's 58 years old, George. 58.
Oh, Tyson
Look,
in two. Come
again,
on.
again, Jake Paul picks his opponents for a reason. We all remember Mike Tyson of 25 years ago, right? We all remember that guy, but this is not that guy standing in front of us. This is a very
Okay,
dangerous
what about Mike Tyson
situation.
4 years ago against Roy Jones Jr., another geezer? I get it, but
Mhm.
he didn't look. He actually looked like okay. He didn't look like he phoned it in. Kind of like what we've been saying about some of these MMA guys. They're just
Right.
grabbing the big bag and getting on out of there. He looked like he tried as best as he could to get as much as he could out of that 54-year-old body.
I'm not saying he doesn't have a chance. All right. He's a very awkward fighter. His fighting style, a lot of people don't fight that way. That's why he was successful in boxing for so long. It's hard to prepare for a guy like that, especially a guy with that stature, right? I mean, he was fighting really, really tall guys and getting the best of them. He is very awkward. And because of that, I do feel like maybe he does have a chance early on. 1 to 2 rounds max, though. I think after that, look, they're gonna fight in a big ring. This is a huge, huge arena or stadium. Sorry. He's just going to stick and move. I don't think Jake Paul's an idiot. 58 years old just seems too much, George. And I know 4 years ago, but think about us, right? We're older guys. 4 years to us feels like 8, 12 years. When you start aging at that time, like I just don't see it, man. I don't know. Am I crazy or what?
I don't know, Matt Wells. Are you going to save me? Is it going to be 2-on-2 versus these two, or am I on an island here by myself? Who do
You're
you
gonna be
like?
on an island, man. This fight should not be happening by any means whatsoever. I mean, Mike Tyson is literally old enough to be Jake Paul's father, comfortably, right? And we're talking about him going in there. You know, somebody in the chat just said Josh Wallace just made a fantastic point in the chat. Mike Perry said that Jake Paul was too fast for him. What the hell do you think Mike Tyson will say? Exactly. Listen, I mean, even you can go watch the post-fight press conference, man. The questions started coming in about Mike, and they started getting very agitated about the age questions quickly. So I think there is some obviousness there going on that they know that, hey, maybe this shouldn't be happening, but there's too much money to be made, so it's going to go through. I mean, the Netflix debut, they're going to go all out for it. Sure, they're going to make it a fantastic, spectacle of an event, production-wise and all that kind of stuff, but once they get in the ring, if you're going to tell me that Mike Tyson is going to compete against Jake Paul at this point, like Mike Perry just tried to do, I'm not liking how this could play out, man. I'm really not. Mike Tyson,
He's not going to
could
get hit
really
like Mike
hurt.
Perry did. He'll have better defense than Mike Perry did. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's going to have better defense for sure, but again, it comes down to how long can he move effectively at this point.
Yeah,
Because,
I agree.
like Jake Paul can just carry him into, rounds 5, round 6, and then just start dancing on him, right? We see all these clips of Mike Tyson training right now, but it's the magic of the editing, right? It's all like quick little blurbs, the editing. It's like, it seems like you're watching Mike Tyson go hard for a minute and 30 seconds. No, you're watching 5-second clips spliced together over how long, and nobody really actually knows, so I don't like how this could potentially play out. yes, obviously Mike Tyson's a legend. Jake Paul gives him that credit, and he speaks as such about him. But don't tell me you're going to get in the ring and go hard against him at this point. With that age gap, 58 years old, man. This one of our legends could really get hurt. And I want to touch on something that Farrah said. Being that everybody's so mad about what Jake Paul is doing, that's the magic of it. He's got so many people pissed off. He's waged a war against MMA. He's winning it, collecting checks. Keep the grift going for as long as you can, because you're never going to run out of MMA opponents at this point. Because why? Because MMA fighters cannot beat traditional boxers, and Jake Paul has dedicated himself to being a traditional boxer, and he's going to keep winning these fights as long as they happen.
Just to be clear, I think Tyson can get him in 2 rounds, but I understand there is a cliff he's going to fall off as the fight goes on. I agree with Lazy Bet. He says Tyson has 4 minutes of gas, and then it's a wrap. And that's I'm going to say 6 minutes of gas, and then I'm not liking my chances one bit. But, man, I just feel like that power, he still can throw it, man. I've seen him, and I don't know. Jake Paul has impressed me for what he's done, but when I just have my boxing glasses on, I see a lot of holes. He's getting tired after round 3. He's
Cardio
just has
too.
no one to expose him,
Yeah, I mean, Mike's got to get in close, right? He's got to back him up against the ropes. He's got to back him into a corner. But like I said, I don't think Jake Paul's going to play that game. I think he's just going to move around and get out of the way. And after a while, regardless of how much action there is, moving around the ring, the footwork, all that stuff, your body just starts to go away. And especially being a 58-year-old, you're going to tire. And I think that's when Jake Paul starts to fight.
Yeah.
Fada,
Jake-
how do you think this affected Mike Perry? He's the king of violence. He's maybe the biggest name over at BKFC, but right away, one of his bosses wants to fire him, right? And everyone, in the chat room, people are saying he's a nice guy and all that stuff, but does this trip him up anyway in his own sport, which at this moment is BKFC?
Naturally, it will, because anytime you come off of a loss, you got stalked. You got stalked by the guy that that everyone was rooting for, Mike Perry, right? So it is going to affect him in some shape or form. Now it depends who he draws in his next fight for BKFC. I don't know what the plans they have for him. I mean, he did mention, telling Conor McGregor, "I'll fight you. Let's fight in bare knuckles." So I think he can still get a lot of options in terms of who he can fight at BKFC, because it seems like a lot of people are interested in competing there, and he is the king of violence, and he is unbeaten there. It will affect him a little bit, in terms of doubt creeping in, because now Mike Perry, when it was being matched up, a lot of people would favor him at BKFC because it just seems like he found his perfect home. Now maybe some doubt will creep in depending on who he gets matched up with. Are we going to finally see a Darren Till? Darren Till is not interested in BKFC, right? He talked about boxing. So depending on who he fights, I think a little bit of doubt is now going to creep in. They're going to talk about the damage he's taken, questioning his durability, right? Because that's what Mike was known for. He did show a lot of toughness, but he got knocked down multiple times. So I think that's the kind of doubt that's going to creep in. But it depends on who he gets matched up with, and I think he can still draw big names at this point at BKFC. But he's just not going to have that lure. Like, okay, BKFC is it is still his home. He is still unbeaten there, but talking about the previous points of everybody getting mad, it's because people were rooting for Mike Perry. And now maybe people might doubt like the damage and durability and all that stuff. But you're only as good as your last fight, right? Look at the way Nate Diaz turned things around after losing to Paul and beating Jorge Masvidal. Now all of a sudden, people are talking about Nate Diaz again. So I think it's literally a matter of that, getting back on the boards, picking up another win. But do I still think he can get a big fight? Yeah, I think Mike Perry, marketing-wise, has done a great job in the past couple of years, as has Nate Diaz. So still going to get a big fight. Just depends on how he performs and if he can rebound like Nate Diaz did.
Matt, I think you were on the verge of saying something. I may have cut you off. Did you want to finish a thought that you had, or?
Oh, I was just going to say, that if anybody is like angry at Jake Paul for doing what he's doing and not taking on competition like actual boxers, that's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to go out here and make money. I mean, yes, he says he wants to be a championship boxer, but he's going to try to backdoor his way into like the easiest championship fight ever. He's not going to go out there and shoot for Canelo or anything like that. Yeah, he may mention his name, but let's be real. Canelo's not going to fight Jake Paul. It's not going to happen, and if it did, it would be very ugly for Jake Paul. We saw what happened when he fought a real boxer, and not a very good boxer for that matter, in Fury. So let's be real. Jake Paul is here to fight MMA fighters, to take these fun fights, call out Alex Pereira. That's probably going to be his most, hardest fight if that actually does come together, which, I could see Dana White at this point being like, please go shut this kid up. Mm-hmm. That would be amazing.
I was telling goes either him or Sean Strickland or someone. See, Pereira's a champ, so he kind of ties up a division. We want him defending, but yeah, I'm wondering if Dana's getting pissed. I know McGregor's getting pissed. Check out what he had to say about Jake Paul. I mean, he kind of does this every fight night. He's always out there hating, swagger jacking. He says, Jake Paul is the biggest pissing bag I've ever seen him in my life. 40-pound weight difference, juiced out of his head, and shitting himself in there. Nakisa, that's Jake Paul's top executive or whatever. You should take him to Vegas. Oh, that's right. You could never. The Athletic Commission testing, real fighting, bitch asses. You could never. And then calling out 60-year-old Mike Tyson fresh off an in-flight medical emergency. I swear to God, a fat can of bitch piss, a most valuable piss bag. So yeah, McGregor, not into Jake Paul at all. More hate there. And then he also comes after his own fighter, man. So McGregor, as you all know, he's a part owner now of BKFC. He told Mike Perry, he goes, hey, Mike, you're released and you can go compete in your smelly, dirty boxing championship thing. The smell of it. Good luck. You're fired. Taking a page from Donald Trump there. Holy cow. I mean, I'm telling you, man, that's why I say this fight just definitely had the bigger spotlight of the night. Any reaction there, guys? Gus, what'd you think of old McGregor up to his fight night antics of hating?
I don't know what it is about that tweet, but I feel like the smelly part would be the part that would sting the most. But that's just kind of what he does, man. Like, him and John Jones are masters of this. Some people say they're haters. I don't think they're really haters. I think what they are just swagger jackers. That's what they got to do. When you're at the top, you don't want the attention going other places. You want it to remain on you. John Jones has a little bit better of an argument when he does that because he is one of, if not the greatest to ever do it. Conor McGregor 6 years ago, that's probably an easier thing to do. But today, I feel like everything you post, people are just going to come right back at you, right? Because there's so many little deficiencies that we can poke at now. So I think you can do it, but you can't be too overboard with it. He's a little too overboard with it, but I mean, it's something it's not going to change, man. This guy's always going to voice his opinion, but that's why people like him.
Fada, is this guy you think it's general disdain because his career's not going right, so he's got to hate on someone else, or is he just clowning on fight night, just getting his jabs in?
Well, he's doing that for sure because he does that every single time for every event, right? But I want to tie in one of the comments from Lazy Bed. He said, this hurts BKFC's branding without a doubt. I think that's what it is a little bit. He said, you're king of violence dethroned by a kid nobody in the public respects. Obviously talking about Jake Paul. I think that's what it is. It's the point I reiterated throughout the show is people being mad. I think Conor McGregor is mad. He was rooting for Mike Perry. And that's the performance he put up. He's part owner of BKFC, and Mike Perry is the face of BKFC. So I think it's just Conor being mad at Perry's performance more than anything. So I think that comment was by Lazy Bed is pretty much sums it up, that it hurts BKFC's branding more than it hurts Mike Perry, in my opinion.
Here's a new one. Omnipolar 777, or at least I haven't heard of it. He's calling it Clout Chaseology 101. I mean, he's got enough clout. McGregor's got his own clout, but what do you think, Matt Wells? Let's put a cap on this topic, but your thoughts on McGregor? Is he just clowning on fight night, or do you think there's just something like, man, I'm not out there, so I'm going to hate on someone else?
I mean, it's a little bit of that, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, you should probably still support Perry since you guys are business partners. Just if you want to tweet something out there to kind of, throw shade on the whole event, why don't you say, why don't you come over to MMA, Jake? Why don't you come to Bare Knuckle, Jake? you know, like you'll know what happened if you don't have giant pillows on your fists. You know what I'm saying? Like, tweet something positive to support your business partners. Like, instead of throwing Mike Perry under the bus, unless if you guys are gonna fight. If this is gonna lead to McGregor versus Perry in some form or fashion, then it's brilliant. But otherwise, I didn't like seeing that from Connor.